So, I'm assuming that you've watched the first video and worked out how to take data from a text file and to import it into the computer and to build from that text file a series of tables. So that's the point I'm kind of now at. I've got 4 tables, one called mentors, one called players, one called player statistics, and one called table positions. And each of those you can see, one gives you player positions on a football pitch. The other obviously links to players with player ID and position ID. So those are key fields in other tables. Then we've got the players table. Then we've got the mentor table. Now, first step is to make these tables related. Now, in order to do that, where we need to go is to go through to the design view. And when we go to the design view, we want to make sure that they're all the same type on the ID fields. So they need to be a number. And if they're a key field, it's just right clicking on that box and choosing primary key. So they're on table player statistics. You might sit there and think, I'm not comfortable which one to make a primary key, but you do need to make sure that they're both number. A number of the same type as the other numbers. So I've just gone for long integer on all of them. Then on table players, right click down to design view. Again, you can see it's a number, again a long integer, but that one is clearly my primary key. And then finally on table mentors, again right click, again design view, and again you can see I've got a number, it's a long integer, but it's got to be a primary key. Now at that point, your next key step is to make sure that you've closed each of these tables, so that when you've closed the tables, you can then begin to put relationships in place. And it'll ask you on any table that you've not saved as you're closing it to save it, like it's just done there on me. But once you've got to that point where you've saved them all, you can then click on Database Tools. And on Database Tools, there's this option of relationships. So as you click on relationships, I would space them out so they're kind of in the order you want them to be. Now I know position ID is going to link with position ID there, and I can see player ID is going to link with player ID there, so that's going to work beautifully. And mentor ID is going to work with mentor ID there. So they're in a nice order for me in terms of inserting those tables. If you find there's a table missing, you simply just click on Add Table, double click on it, and it'll put it on there. But I've got all the tables I need, so I don't need to do that. Now, in order to join them up, what you're then doing is dragging that mentor ID from there to there. And as you drag it across, put the 3 ticks in place, and crucially, it should say one to many. If it says many to many, it's got confused. If it says one to one, relax, but you've probably set primary keys on both of them and you don't need to. If it says indeterminate, there's a problem. And the indeterminate problem is usually that you've not set it as a number or you've not set it as a primary key. So one of those 2 steps is missing. Either the ID field in one table or the ID field in the other table isn't a number, or the ID field in the table that should be the primary key isn't the primary key. Now, if you've missed either of those steps, you'll get that relationship type indeterminate, and that you need to fix before you build a relationship. Don't plow through without it. Always put the 3 ticks in, then you press create, then it builds a relationship. Then I do the same for player ID, tick, 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 create, and then I do the same for position ID, tick, 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 create. And at that point, I've got a relationship that's then working from one to the other, and the thing is flowing together properly in terms of how it's working. Now, the next step that always goes with that in any of these assignments that you're asked to do is you need to put in place some validation rules in your table. So at that stage, I would close the relationships and ask you, do you want to save them? Of course we do. There's no point doing it if we didn't save it. But there's usually the assignment will tell you need to make sure that this one can't be left blank, or that this one has to have a letter or something like that. So I'm going to put, or it's greater than a certain number, although I don't think there are any on this one that are greater than or less than a certain number. So I'm going to run through with you how do you put those checks in place. So if I go to, say, the players table, you can see I've got a whole bunch of information about different footballers in this particular example. Now, it might well say that you can't leave the player's date of birth blank. Now, in order to make that happen, you right click, you go down to design view, you click on the player's date of birth. And where it says validation rule and validation text there, you need to fill both these in. Now, the rule is specific. You're using a command where it says validation rule. So the command I'm going to use is not null. So is not empty, is not left blank, is not null. Now that's a specific command that you use for saying it's not been left empty, is not null. And it will capitalize it, you see. As I move down to the next thing, it'll capitalize it. Now at this stage, you could write anything you like. I could write my name, I could write an essay, but really what this validation text is the error message if you leave it blank. So there is no special words you've got to use here. You can just put, say, the player's date of birth should be present for each record. And there, that will be the sort of thing it will be looking for on one of those is not nulls. So that would solve that one. Now, let me pick another example. On, say, a player's initial, you might sit there and say there's got to be a letter. It's got to be a single letter. Now, to do that, you could get into this business of trying to write a rule that would do that, but the easier way to do that is it's got to be, and you use the greater than sign, a letter. Now you can use letters, you can use numbers, you can use spaces, but it allows you to control the kind of the layout of it. So you could use it for a phone number, you could use it for a postcode. In this case, we're using it for just saying it has to have a single letter in there on each of these players, that you can't put the surname in without putting the letter in. And with that, we've done the basics of getting the validation rules in place, getting your tables set up so your tables are joined. And on the next video, I'm going to show you how to make some queries. And then having showed you how to make some queries, I'm going to